In space, no one can hear you. Alien Romulus! Alien is a series very close to my heart. Alongside Predator, Terminator, and Blade Runner, worlds that all kind of intersect either on screen or off, these films ignited my love for science fiction and movie making more than possibly anything else. I wore the discs out on my 2003 Alien Quadrilogy collection growing up, and the special featurettes are still some of the greatest I've ever come across, because everyone is holding cigarettes, giving these candid interviews about everything that went wrong and how and why the suits stepped in to fuck everything up. It's absolutely delicious. I mean, look at this fucking image of Ridley Scott. Fucking look at it. That's the definition of based. I love most of the Alien movies and even like the more maligned ones to some degree. Each one offers something special, and the Xenomorph itself has got to be one of the most iconic cinematic creations of all time. I think I would rather have a T-1000 or a Predator chasing after me than one of these horrible insectoid Geiger nightmares. At least the other two will just stab me to death. This thing is going to take me to its leader and lay eggs in me. Ugh. Alien was in a very interesting place in the 2010s. I had my problems with Prometheus, but it dared to be different and took big swings with the lore, which I appreciated. Not to mention it delivered on one of the gnarliest scenes in the whole franchise with that squid abortion surgery scene. Alien Covenant was great, and I have been in the trenches defending it since 2017, so be sure to get incredibly irritated by me when my Alien ranking drops.
What do you believe in, David? Creation.
Michael Fassbender's David becoming the father of the Xenomorph, the embodiment of Ridley Scott's unmade Blade Runner sequel, and the single best character next to Ripley herself made both of his movies worthwhile as a hardcore fan, and I was desperate to see him in one more installment just to tie everything off.
I'll tuck in the children.
Unfortunately, Covenant didn't do the numbers, and I had to face the fact it wasn't critically or commercially very well received, even if more and more of you seem to be turning positively on it in the years that followed. Really, it was inevitable, Mr. Anderson. Inevitable that the next Alien movie would be played far safer, with less mythic world building, questions of creation, and awesome killer androids. The only question was, how safe would Alien 9 go?
There's something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
I don't know, there's just something in the fucking water.
My biggest concern right from post-Covenant to the announcement of Romulus, to the casting, to the shooting, to the first trailer, right up to release, was this. Would it be Alien: The Force Awakens? Would it be what TFA is to A New Hope for the very first 1979 Alien? Would it borrow the structure, character archetypes, and narrative drive, presenting itself as shiny and new, whilst really being a pale imitation through and through? Well, having seen Alien Romulus, I would say a resounding no. It is not just a complete lift from the original Alien, its characters are born out of a different conceit than the space trucker vibes of the original, the setting is similar but different enough, and there's plenty of cool new ideas like the Dead Space-esque zero gravity segments. There's also some fan service that threatens to derail the whole thing. Fan service that is not only unnecessary, but arguably immoral and terribly executed. For everything Alien Romulus does well, there's something paradoxically terrible. Every step forward it takes another step back. But does the good ultimately outweigh the bad? Well, let's break down what I loved and what I didn't, and see. Before I get to all that, I want to talk quickly about today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Now, we all know what a VPN is. They're incredibly useful for accessing all kinds of goodies, like streaming services in other regions, allowing you to watch all manner of shows you wouldn't be able to. It protects your identity online and prevents tracking, which is useful if you're, amongst other things, James Bond.
I am James Bond.
It can keep all your passwords safe and encrypted. Using a VPN on certain sites can get you better deals like cheaper flight tickets. I think in this day and age, honestly, it's generally a bit nutty to not have a VPN for good measure.
But now I can see your nuts.
Thank you.
Surfshark allows you to use exactly one account on an unlimited number of devices, which is really handy. Surfshark also offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really no reason not to give it a go, unless you don't want all the goodies it gives you. And I don't know about you, but I love goodies almost as much as I love saying the word goodies. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. Enter coupon code FULLFAT for 4 months extra at surfshark.com/fullfat. Before we get into full spoilers, my non-spoiler take would be to go out and see it if you like the previous movies, if you are itching for some horror, because I think you'll have a fun time even if you dislike the things that I did. It brings me joy to see that this movie is doing well, and I want the franchise to be in a healthy state, and if you do too, go out and see it. Now on to heavy acid-filled spoilers, so you've been warned. The good, the cast. Every Alien movie has had a unique set of spacefarers and has given each one a unique flavour. Even when the new cast hasn't quite worked, I've commended the fact that each movie has tried to give us something different. The first movie gave us the iconic blue-collar space truckers that grounded the high-concept science fiction in a way seldom seen before. The second movie shifted gears to high-octane colonial marines, and the third gave us bald convicted murderers and rapists, which was a real choice. The fourth movie gave us a group of scruffy-looking nerf herder smugglers, and then Prometheus gave us a bunch of white-collar scientists on a well-funded spaceship, in stark contrast to Ridley Scott's first outing in the series. Covenant gave us a starter colony made up entirely of couples, which I think really worked well when the bodies hit the floor, and it gave the audience a really good hook to Catherine Waterston's protagonist Daniels. So first off, the movie skirts the Disney Star Wars remixing by avoiding giving us variations on the space truckers or a bunch of colonial marines. I'm not going to lie, I groaned a little when it was revealed that the cast would be entirely made up of younger people, because it felt like the Disney acquired 20th Century Studios was just going to do Gen Z meets Alien. Bodies, 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 but with xenomorphs. I like that movie, but the last thing I want to see is Pete Davidson fighting an alien queen. Actually, that would be a pretty good SNL sketch. The actual execution in the movie is good, and it ties it in nicely with the ever-looming threat of Weyland-Yutani, putting corporate interests over humanity. Kaylee Spaney's Rain dreams of moving to a breathable atmosphere with more freedom, but is stuck on a dreary, overworked, underfunded mining colony with her android brother, David Johnson's Andy. Director Fede Alvarez wanted the plight of these younger characters to parallel trying to escape a third world country, and I think that works really well for the movie. We've seen the working class of this universe, we've seen the space 1%, but we've never seen the poor and starved quite like this. The mining colony is essentially a prison. The movie sells us on why these kids want to escape so badly and seek out a better life, even if it means pulling off a dangerous heist. Kaylee Spaney is having a fantastic year after a great turn in Civil War, and now this. Sure, all three of the protagonists since Prometheus have had shades of Ripley in some form, but it's hard to avoid in this franchise unless you do something so drastically different. The USP with Rain is her dynamic to her brother Andy, played by Rye Lane's David Johnson. He damn near enough steals the show, going from an awkward malfunctioning robot to a calculating, ruthless strategist following a software upgrade. Johnson plays both sides of Andy to perfection, and whilst this synthetic doesn't scale the heights of David, I think the movie does a pretty good job of handling him. When Rain ponders if Andy is in there somewhere following his detached new demeanour, you do feel it, and their relationship is the emotional heart of the movie. I liked both characters, and I'd be happy to see them again in future movies. On the flip side, I'm happy to keep doing one and done stories in the Alien world. It might be nice. It's always worked for Predator to some degree. The other cast members serve their purpose and are all pretty likeable, but nothing groundbreaking. The standout is really Spike Fern's Bjorn on account of how thoroughly unlikable he is, which is totally the intent, and his drawn-out painful death in the movie is one of the genre's nastiest pleasures. We love seeing people we hate die in horror movies. Did anyone else think in his first scene that he made the beeping sound from In-Betweeners that Jay does whenever Simon brings up Tara.
Traps. Beep, 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 beep. Oh, time for another Tara update.
Sounds really like it. Is it just me? The bad. Line callbacks. This movie's first fan service mistake is calling back to lines from the previous movies. This is always ropey territory that feels way too meta for its own good. You have Batman saying, "Do you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts." He's knowingly saying something iconic that he wouldn't know is iconic because he said it once 30 years ago and he's not Deadpool. The characters in these universes don't know we're observing them and turning their words into catchphrases, so they have no need to repeat them. It's always noticeably worse when it's done by different characters altogether. The Rook robot says, "I can't lie to you about your chances, but you have my sympathies," which I suppose could be something they're all programmed to say in a roundabout way, but it's completely unnecessary. The worst offender is of course when Andy kills the final xenomorph and exclaims,
"Get away from her, you bitch!"
It's way too specific to feel like a coincidence, like the artificial person line, and what does it really bring to proceedings? Wouldn't it have been cooler for him to say something new that could go on to be iconic in its own right? Hell, I'd have taken one of his side-splittingly hilarious dad jokes over that. I do think some corners of the internet are particularly mean about people enjoying these lines, however, like maybe for the general audience member who hasn't thought about these lines or the movies since they saw the last Alien movie, gets a little kick out of hearing them, and yeah, that's fine, whatever. I don't think they work personally, but I think sometimes there's an air of superiority that comes off of talking about general audiences like they're brainless idiots for enjoying stuff like this, and I just don't like that. The only thing I will say in defense of this movie is that Prey still seems to be a fan darling, and it did the exact same stupid thing. And yet, I don't see anywhere near the vitriol for that film doing it, not back in 2022, and certainly not now. It sucks whenever it is done.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.
I do wonder if these line callbacks in movies are made with the algorithms of the internet in mind. If you quote an earlier movie, it's going to end up clipped and compared on TikTok and Twitter and YouTube, and people are going to be talking about it, even if the talking is bitching. People loved it when Norman Osborn exclaims that he was something of a scientist himself in No Way Home. I'm sure companies are going to keep doing this because we can't stop talking about it. And hey, I'm even talking about it right now. You know what's a good callback that I approve of every time? Musical references. Hearing the Prometheus theme gave me chills, the kind of chills I'm sure the filmmakers want to conjure when they get characters to say the lines. I've been saying this for years, music is where you should go for the fan service. It's not intrusive in the same way, it's non-diegetic, so it's okay to reference something just for the audience as the characters can't hear it, whereas diegetic lines spoken in the world by people that wouldn't know those lines, at best just being the result of a ridiculous coincidence, is always silly and breaks the reality of the world. Maybe I'm in the minority here, but I think musical callbacks legitimise the connections more than anything else. Hearing the X2 theme in the Marvel's post-credit scene made the appearance of Beast so much better. The good, the set pieces. One place where the movie really excels is the most important part next to the characters, the set pieces, the goodies we're here for. Whilst I don't think the film is as gruesome or as gory as it could have been, especially for the director of 2013's Evil Dead, I thought every alien encounter in the movie was great. Every single big scene had a unique idea to it and a well-crafted ticking clock. It was tense and filled with plenty of near misses that make these scenes sing.
What's happening?
The first terrifying sequence involves Andy rebooting, giving the two Brits minutes to wait whilst they are locked in a room with rapidly defrosting facehuggers. Oh, there's something in the bloody water, mate! The visual of seeing Andy possessed by the company is a brilliant visual metaphor, and the framing of him catching a facehugger just in time to save Tyler is masterfully done. The visual of Tyler being violated by the facehugger is already an iconic, gross out alien moment, and on a more serious note, continues the themes of sexual violence in the series. The chest burster in this movie doesn't top the back burster from Covenant, or the resurrection head burster, a truly goat burster scene, but the use of the X-ray light is neat. Even the more run-of-the-mill alien moments have a fun twist on them. I loved the concept of changing the temperature of the room to match the character's body temperature, allowing them to sneak past the facehuggers in a scene that tips its hat to the modern monster fest that is incredibly popular, A Quiet Place. Andy's perfectly timed
Run.
when everything failed and they had to make a break for it was great, complete with an Indiana Jones moment as Tyler barely makes it through the rapidly closing doors. We're told a synthetic killed Bjorn's mother when it was forced to put the lives of many over the few. This is something Rain takes disgust in, and later she is forced to watch her brother do the same thing. It's either Dora the Explorer bites it, or all four of them do it by opening the door and letting her in, which would also let the alien in. I love seeing the Xenos bait out humans, a great callback to their most mischievous moments in the prior movies, as well as material such as Alien Isolation, which Fede Alvarez said was a big inspiration. Watching the alien wait high above the door, so still, content to keep its bloodlust at bay because of the promise of a bigger score, is just rad. It's then capped off with Andy's great clapback. Rain can't believe he did what he did, but Andy calls her out right away. He only did what she was willing to do to him, had the plan to make it to Ivaga occurred without a hitch. Of course, the best moment by far was the alien blood. The zero-G sequences were awesome throughout the movie, and coupled with the fact that this lot were flying to and exploring an eerily quite derelict ship, gave it a lot of favourable comparisons to my favourite video game space horror, Dead Space. It's awesome that Dead Space was inspired by things like Alien and The Thing and Event Horizon, and now Alien is taking a page out of its book in turn. But anyway, all the awesome zero-G stuff pays off when Rain and Andy have to navigate through a bevy of floating acidic blood. It looked awesome and felt really visceral. I winced when Rain just made it past the blood, and once again, there was a great ticking clock in the pen needing to get past it before the next gravity surge, which would send it all toppling down. The final station set piece involves more zero-G in the elevator shaft, and it's full of great moments, from Andy just missing Rain to seeing her quote-unquote saved by a xenomorph so that she can become facehug at dinner. It was awesome seeing Andy dive down onto the last alien with a pulse rifle in hand, if only he had not said anything. I also love the constant ticking clock of the station crashing into the rings, keeping everything moving and cutting to the space exteriors at the perfect moments when everything is already going wrong. It also looks brilliant when the station does finally crash and smash into smithereens. The tension kept referring back to the sibling dynamic, and it only made those characters stronger. Everything was satisfyingly done, and this is where the movie flexes the most originality. I'm sure I'll enjoy rewatching the film as a whole in years to come, but I know for sure I'll boot up a couple of YouTube clips of these sequences just like I would from any of the other movies, and that is a huge compliment in my book. Anyway, book, Rook, what the fuck? Terrible segue, the bad Rook. I was working on my third and final Lord of the Rings video when Ian Holm passed on over 4 years ago now, and it's mad how quickly the time has gone. It was great to watch his work in Rings that day and be reminded what a talent he was and what a great body of work he left behind. The tribute to the man exists in that work, including his iconic turn as Android Ash in the very first movie. That character was the perfect way to show off how Weyland-Yutani was pure evil and willing to do whatever it took to acquire the biological weapon the engineers had left behind on LV-426. He was a corporate drone in a very literal sense and established the long-running android contingent, which is as inseparable from these movies as the aliens themselves. Without Ash, we wouldn't have gotten the majesty of David all those years later.
But you are not allowed to create.
It was unimaginably lame when it was revealed that the disemboweled android laying on the floor of Remus Station was in fact a carbon copy of Ash. The logic of using an Ian Holm droid works. There's bound to be plenty of robots in this era that look like him, just like how there were multiple Michael Fassbenders.
What do you guys come off an assembly line or something?
Exactly.
I liked the character's use in the story, and it was cool to see him playing the characters in an effort to get the Prometheus goo off the station and back into the hands of Weyland-Yutani. I liked how he tried to appeal to a fellow synthetic in Andy and explained that he needed to think more like him and make the hard decisions the humans would not be able to do. All of that worked. What didn't work was taking a dead actor's face and engaging in CGI necromancy to achieve this. And here we call back to another Star Wars movie, really the movie that kicked off this awful trend. X-Men The Last Stand and Tron Legacy kicked off the aging actors, but it was Rogue One that went a step further and decided to resurrect Peter Cushing without any of his charm or subtleties. Rogue One produced a CGI abomination with its Grand Moff Tarkin, and did the same to Princess Leia, although Carrie Fisher hadn't yet passed away when the effect was created. These CGI doubles weren't convincing then, and they still aren't convincing now. It boggles my mind that anybody thinks this is a good idea. Why do we need to CGI the faces of dead actors in an attempt to make the scene look in continuity with the older movies? Ben Mendelsohn is acting off of Count Olaf, and his face looks like untextured melted ice cream. How is that more immersion breaking than just recasting the role and accepting that the character looks a bit different to how they did in the last movie? I do not understand it one iota. Do fans really get a kick out of this stuff? I know I certainly don't. For all the faults of legacy cameos in Marvel movies, I feel it when Wesley Snipes walks into frame. Blade is really there. Blade is really back. Ian Holm and Peter Cushing did not come back, and neither did their characters. It doesn't have the same effect, and it never will. You'll never believe it, you'll never feel it in the same way. I do agree that it is largely unethical, even though we always get told their estates signed off. It feels like studios are just inching closer and closer to making actors work forever from the grave. Ian Holm's wife signed off on it and felt her husband would have loved the idea, and to be fair, she definitely knew him better than me or anybody on film Twitter, but the fact remains, no one who has passed away can consent to this, no matter what their loved ones sign off on. It's all unstable ground, and the implications going forward are truly frightening. Maybe it would be better if it all felt like a worthwhile loving tribute to the actor and the character, but the effect looks ropey and it all feels unnecessary. You could have used literally any other actor for this Rook character. It's not Ash, so it doesn't have to look like Ash. It could have been another Michael Fassbender. It could have been David Johnson. It could have been Lance Henriksen or Winona Ryder, for crying out loud. Given the Alien Resurrection connection in this movie, I think that last choice could have been fun. No matter how you look at it, this is the single worst decision in Alien Romulus, and it really holds the movie back. I wish someone who worked on this pulled the plug before they spent God knows how much on this effect. Ian Holm will forever be Ash, and doing this doesn't add anything to that original performance. Also, it's a minor nitpick, but I loved how the films kept up the charming idea to name all the androids in alphabetical order: Ash, Bishop, Call, David. Even Alien's fire team called it Synthetic Esther, so I wish Andy had begun with an F and this robot had begun with a G. Now it's all over, like Ethan Hunt always alternating from short to long hair between movies. Both of these lovely tropes are dead, and I'm very sad. The good, Prometheus Fire. I knew that this movie was going to stray from the lore-heavy world building of the last two movies, but I didn't think that spelled doom for Alien Romulus, not necessarily. Alien and Predator is in a better position than other sci-fi movie franchises to ignore its own lore. It's easier to do a new Alien or Predator than it is to do something like a Star Wars. With every new Star Wars, you have to engage in the lore and the timelines and the wider mythos just to place the story somewhere. Every story decision raises questions about how it all fits together, for better or for worse, and it's usually worse. Even something like Terminator is bound by its time travel shenanigans. You can't really just give us another Terminator hunting a human dynamic without explaining how we got there. Alien and Predator can give us a new installment like any long-running horror series. You can just give us a new monster, some new characters, and let the former hunt and kill the latter. You don't have to touch much of the lore if you don't want to. You can engage with it as much or as little as you like. Prey is really just another Predator movie in the same vein as the first two, with a unique setting to give it something fresh. It's another dose of entertaining Predator action, death, and combat. It's nothing like 2018's The Predator, which attempted to explain more parts of the canon and tie together other movies to astonishingly bad effect. With these series, less can be more. So Alien Romulus could have just been that. It could have ignored David and Ripley and the AVP stuff entirely and still deliver what fans want. pant-shitting terror or pant-wetting action, depending on what style of the franchise we're going for. So imagine how happy I was when Prometheus was referenced in a huge way. It turns out the research station has been reverse engineering the secret of David's creation, taking us right back to the black goo pathogen, which is now being used as an answer to mankind's spacefaring woes. This is the kind of fan service I can get behind. It ties one of the earlier movies into this narrative in a way that makes perfect sense, and it bolsters the story. Everyone on those poor, disenfranchised mining colonies is getting sick or dying from the highly dangerous work they're being forced into doing, and the company's answer is to use highly volatile space goo to put them to work longer and harder. The Prometheus fire makes this movie a direct sequel to Prometheus and Covenant as much as it is to the original Alien, and I love that. This connection only bolsters the story rather than being a referential distraction. It doesn't involve an audience recognising a character, and really, you could never have seen Prometheus and still have been caught up to speed when this all unfolds. It of course leads to the biggest what the fuck awesome moment of Alien Romulus, the hybrid.
The hybrid.
I did not expect us to ever retread the idea of an alien-human hybrid after Alien Resurrection, but honestly, why the hell not? It was done really differently here, and it was so screwed up seeing Kay give birth to it before it hatched and grew to full size. The design is way less empathetic than the Resurrection design, and it doesn't conjure any sad feelings when Rain kills it, unlike when Ripley does to the hybrid in that. This thing is a nasty killing machine, and its uncanny grin is so unsettling. I loved it. I did not think we would get anything resembling an engineer in this movie, but the DNA is clearly intertwined with the human and Xeno in that design. Mwah. I would like to see the movies continue to give us crazy Xeno designs. The fact that the host and incubation process can give us all kinds of variants needs to be explored more on screen as much as it is in, say, the comics. I did not think this much of the 2010s Alien would go into Romulus, but I'm really glad we didn't just completely pretend Prometheus and Covenant didn't happen. This is what I want as a fan. I really would rather see that black goo ruin some more lives, or see what the engineers are up to, than hear someone pick up a shotgun and say, "Shh, I like to keep this handy for close encounters." Wink wink, audience. The bad, shoot them out of the airlock. The only problem with the black goo and the awesome alien engineer Xeno hybrid is the way it's dispatched. The whole blowing the alien out of the airlock thing being the only way to be sure has been tiring ever since Aliens did it in 1986. Going bigger and doing it to an alien queen was about the only place left for the idea to go. Alien 3 had the good nature to not retread it, and then Alien Resurrection did it with an alien-human hybrid no less. Even my beloved Alien Covenant couldn't resist, which was probably the lamest thing in the whole movie. So what does Alien Romulus do? It does it again! What I said about The Force Awakens recycling A New Hope, that's in full swing here with this particular moment. We've seen the third act where the monster gets shunted out into space a million times in this franchise. It's so boring at this point, and to see it happen again and it's just beat for beat what happened well over 40 years ago, come on. If Romulus had given us a truly novel way to kill the creature, it would have been great. I get it's hard to prove to the audience the danger is over if the body stays on the ship by the time the credits roll and everyone goes into hypersleep, but there's got to be a more novel and creative way than this. One thing on this, there's a bit of a double-edged sword. I like that the whole outbreak spawns out of retrieving the original alien that was blown out of an airlock. It makes sense that the alien could survive floating in space with no oxygen, just laying dormant until some unwitting life form picks it up. It makes the Xeno even more deadly, and it's a connection to the original that makes sense. Although it is weird this many decades later to find out that the alien in Alien didn't die, but instead perished off screen. I wonder if it would have been cool to see that in the movie, its actual death. The reason I don't like it too much is twofold. It's the Darth Maul effect for one. Obi-Wan used to be the first Jedi in 1,000 years to kill a Sith, but that had to be rendered null and void because Maul came back. Ripley was the first in the series to kill a xenomorph, but it now turns out she never did kill one in that original movie. And then on top of that, we've established that blowing these things out the airlock doesn't actually kill it, making the decision to blow the hybrid out of the airlock at the end even more maddening. The good. Alien and Aliens. Every Alien movie is either a summer or a winter, an Alien or an Aliens is a horror movie or an action movie. Of course, the two genres and their associated conventions overlap, and you get that in the movies too. The action-orientated installments still have their scares, and the horror-focused films still get the blood pumping, but generally, every Alien sequel post-1986 has tried to be one or the other predominantly. Alien 3 tried to be more like the 1979 original, Alien Resurrection tried to be the next Aliens. Prometheus tried to go more horror in spite of throwing tons of monsters at us, and Covenant gave us only one Xeno, but embraced the action. Alien Romulus, commendably, tries to do both.
Very few people are both a summer and a winter, but you pull it off nicely.
I really like that the station is split into two halves, Remus and Romulus, with one half being Alien, whilst the other is Aliens. One side is running away and trying to survive from one alien, whilst the other is full of pulse rifles and Xenos galore. Whilst it never goes to the action heights of Aliens, I think the two halves mesh together quite well. When Fede Alvarez explained that the movie would be Alien and Aliens, I think we all assumed that meant it would be one alien for a bit and then loads of aliens, but I like the way it turned out regardless. It ups the ante in time for the finale, just at the point in which the characters get the firepower to dispatch the lone Xeno hunting them. It's hard to come up with more novel ways to depict the xenomorph and how to kill it, so I enjoyed the structure of this film and how it tried to give us a bit of everything. I also liked that it gave us plenty of facehuggers throughout, rather than ditching them once the alien is born. I just realised, we haven't seen an alien queen on screen in 20 years. Alien vs Predator was the last time in 2004, not in Requiem or Prometheus or Covenant, and their absence is felt here too. Where did the eggs and facehuggers come from? I thought a lone alien is supposed to transform into a queen in emergencies or transform other creatures into Xenos, as shown in the gross Dallas deleted scene from the first movie. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the movie, and I'm sure a future spin-off will explain the biology, but hey-oh, I would like to know why. The good, gorgeous visuals. All the thrills and acidic spills are delivered in a stunningly gorgeous, moody, atmospheric experience. Fede Alvarez and his team have constructed a movie that is completely at home with the high standard of the rest of the series. The production design is fucking fantastic, and I love that we've returned to the more analog world of the older movies over the polished, holographic displays of the last two prequels, even if that made sense for those narratives. The lighting is moody and every scene is full of depth and shadows, making the characters and creatures stand out in these complicated sci-fi worlds without feeling overly lit. DOP Gallo Oliveres has delivered some of his best work, and his cinematography has allowed both the set and story to shine with an appropriate balance. The movie cost roughly 80 million, but it looks way better and more convincing than plenty of the 200 to 300 million blockbusters released in the last 10 years. I'm really glad that Alien has kept up the high standard of audio and visual quality continued by the Ridley Scott prequels. The worst looking movie in the series is still AVP Requiem, and that's really because it's way too dark more than anything else. This movie uses darkness to its advantage, and it only accentuates the cold dark depths of this space terror. The future of Alien. Overall, I think Alien Romulus is far more hit than miss. The fan service stuff sucks, but you can ignore the line callbacks as they come and go so quickly. The Ian Holm resurrection is harder to ignore, and I wish they hadn't have done it, but there's huge stretches of the movie that don't feature this, and when the movie can just focus on the core sibling relationship, the xenomorph horror, and the gorgeous visuals, then it really does sing. I know this Alien movie bowed to fan nostalgia more than ever before, but it also is far more original than a whole host of legacy sequels, and I don't think Alien has jumped the shark yet, far from it. I wanted more David, and hell, I even wanted more Ripley, but you have to be realistic about these things. General audiences didn't love Prometheus, and even less of them showed up for Covenant. It was always going to go this way, and I'm just glad it turned out as well as it did, because it could have been so much worse. Alien is in an interesting place now. They could continue with the same cast, the same director, both, or neither. We could go more of an anthology route and tell more self-contained stories, we could jump further ahead in time, we could really do anything. I think so long as it all looks and sounds incredible, and they give us characters to get behind, it can all work. Hopefully we can finish the David story in some form, and it would be cool to get some sort of reimagining for the end of Ripley, Hicks and Newt's story that's not Alien 3, whether that be in comic, novel or video game form, or in a pipe dreamer film. But for now, I'll definitely be seeing Alien Romulus again and booting up Alien's Fireteam, because that game is one of the best things to come out of the IP since, well, Alien Isolation. Damn, we really have gotten some good Aliens video games in the last 10 years, haven't we? Maybe there's a video on that. At some point before the end of the year, I will be doing a full Alien ranking, including all 9 films, so please check that out. I've been working on that for a few years now, on and off, and I got to a point eventually where I thought, well, the new Alien film's coming out, so I'll just do a big bumper pack after that's released. So that will be coming for the end of the year. Please check that out, and if you want to get notified when more videos from me come out, please hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and failing that, if YouTube doesn't give you any of those notifications, then please consider joining my Patreon. You can join it for free to get updates on new videos, or you could join one of the paid tiers to get exclusive content like the Full Fat Podcast every week, where we go through all manner of things from The Boys to Doctor Who to even this film Alien Romulus in greater detail, and you can get video scripts for every video and even more goodies, as well as credits at the end of every video. A huge thank you to my Full Fat tier patrons, Dr. Chike, TDW fan, and my latest Full Fat tier patron, Zachary Seymour. Thank you so much. You're keeping the lights on, you are keeping Full Fat trucking, and I cannot thank you enough. If you want to get early releases of my videos, or catch up on my latest reviews of Doctor Who, including Dot and Bubble and 73 Yards, then head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos.